What's up, everybody? I have a it's a very sad story and very disturbing. I'm going to go into an analysis later on in another video about why people do these things and what we can do on a policy level to be able to change these things. But this is really just a really quick update about what's going on. So on Saturday, a gunman opened fire on people in El Paso, Texas, outside of a Walmart. Police say 20 people were killed and over 20 were wounded. I'm not going to tell you guys the shooter's name. I don't think that that's beneficial in the long term because it's one thing to learn about someone's background, but when you give them that type of fame, it motivates other people. And so I'm not going to go there. Essentially, there's this guy, again, 21 years old. He was an anti-immigrant individual. He released a manifesto online. Well, at least it's believed up to this point that it was him to release this manifesto. And El Paso, Texas is right along the border of Mexico. And so he shot everybody up. And apparently, you can see Mexico pretty nearby. And so if you're going to do anything anti-immigrant related, that would be a good spot to do it, essentially. Also, El Paso has a very large Latino population, and so this was more than likely a hate crime. But the story really doesn't stop there. Hours later, an individual from Dayton, Ohio, also killed 9 people and injured over 20. But there's not a lot of publicity about who he was or anything like that. That's still being released at this moment, so stay tuned on that one. And if you guys follow me on Twitter at ZachMoss6, I'm probably going to be doing a little bit more research about who these people were without their names. So if you want to know that stuff as well, you can check it out there. And this was all, not only was it very shocking because how sudden it was, but it's also very shocking because literally 6 days prior, 3 people were killed and over 20 were injured at a garlic festival in California. So right now I want to talk about what the presidential candidates are saying about these topics. So in terms of what the different political candidates are saying, Beto O'Rourke, who was literally from El Paso, Texas, chimed in, and here's what he says. So on an interview on CNN's State of the Union, he says, quote, "We have to acknowledge the hatred, the open racism that we are seeing." And he added, "There is an environment of it in the United States." Yeah, this would be a good time for him to tell us what his policy proposals would be in order to counteract this stuff. That's something that we need to know. And so he also continued by saying, with regard to Donald Trump, quote, "He is encouraging this," O'Rourke told Jake Tapper of CNN. "He doesn't just tolerate it, he encourages it, calling immigrants rapists, criminals, and seeking to ban all people of one religion," which was obviously, he's talking about the Muslim ban. Now, with other presidential candidates, there was Cory Booker, who had said, quote, Donald Trump, "is ripping at our nation," Booker said on CNN, repeatedly using the word failing and saying the president, quote, "must be held responsible." Again, this would be a good time for a candidate to tell us these are the exact steps that we should be following. Here's what's going on. Here's what I propose. So in addition to this, Trump decided to chime in, of course, and he says, "God bless the people of El Paso, Texas. God bless the people of Dayton, Ohio." And he also said, "The flags at the White House will be lowered today through Thursday, August 8th. Melania and I are praying for all those impacted by this unspeakable act of evil." One of the more disturbing aspects of what he says is the fact that he still hasn't condemned far-right terrorism, which is what it was. It's essentially terrorism. You're doing this for a political motive. And it's funny because there's actually technically roughly 7 different definitions of terrorism. But generally speaking, doing these things for a politically motivated ideology in order to strike fear into particular crowds, generally a whole population, in this case the United States, would categorize itself as terrorism. But yet he hasn't come out and said that. He hasn't come out and said, look, hey guys, I understand that a lot of my base, not all of course, but there is a fraction of far-right extremists that support some of the things that I'm saying. Guess what? I don't support these things. This is terrible. And I'm going to make steps to make sure that this stuff doesn't happen by doing X, Y, and Z. I know it's a lot to ask for with this particular president, but look, that's something that we need to know. Like or dislike him, like or dislike these other candidates, that's the type of information that we're trying to find out. What are you going to do to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Before I go on a full-blown rant about this, let me just jump into some other people and what they've said. So Bernie says in a Twitter post, he says, Mitch McConnell should bring the Senate back into session immediately to pass H.R. 8, the gun safety bill that has already passed the House. That's a first step to addressing our serious gun violence epidemic. Thank you. That is what we want to hear. What are you going to do about the situation? Well, thank you, Bernie, for pointing that out. So then he also says, Mr. President, stop your racist, hateful, and anti-immigrant rhetoric. Your language creates a climate which emboldens violent extremists. I would agree with that. Next, Bernie says, there are more than 5 million assault weapons out on the streets of America, which is more than the U.S. military has. That is insane. We must ban the sale, distribution, and transfer of assault weapons in the United States. I have not done enough research into that specific stat yet, so I don't know if that is in fact true. But I like the fact that he's getting more policy substance than everybody else. He's going into detail about what exactly is going on and what we should be doing as a result. So Tulsi Gabbard also jumped into this conversation. She had said, sending all of our love and strength to the people of El Paso during this terrible tragedy. Thank you to the brave first responders putting their lives on the line to prevent more from being killed. We can and must come together to prevent this senseless shootings. I would add more from Tulsi if I could, but that's as far as I've seen everything that she had said up to this point. Andrew Yang adds, and hours later, another mass shooting, this time in Dayton, Ohio. The death toll could have been much higher. Enough is enough. We need common sense gun laws. We owe it to ourselves, our children, and the countless Americans impacted by gun violence to get this right. Let's beat Donald Trump. Yeah, I agree.